Alright, you are back with comedian David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol. So I finished the book, Boy Swallows Universe. I smashed it out. I did it in like 5 days. I just wanted to get it done. It's a good book. It's an Australian book. Very fucking Australian. Devon with tomato sauce sandwiches even gets a run in it. If you're an Aussie and you don't read much, you should definitely read that book. Especially if you're a Queenslander. If you're a fucking Queenslander, you need to read that book. But it mainly got me thinking about fucked up childhoods. People who have had fucked up childhoods, if you make it through the fire of that fucking test, when you become an adult, you sort of wear it as a badge of honor. And deservedly so. Deservedly fucking so, you should wear it as a badge of honor. But it's also not uncommon. All my friends growing up had fucked up childhoods. I was thinking about it. One of my mates, his mum had his brother at 16, had him at 18. Then she started dating some abusive alcoholic guy who used to beat the fuck out of her and the older brother all the time. The older brother and him ended up pretty fucked up. And it was just a fucking mess for a long time. Another one of my friends, his dad died when he was young of alcoholism. Then some real fucked up shit happened to him that I'm not going to talk about on this podcast. Another one of my mates, when I was a little bit younger, his dad got busted for pedophilia and ended up committing suicide in the garage. One of my mates had to leave the Philippines. He ended up in Australia with his mum and his grandma. Never saw his dad again, ended up on heroin at 17. Another one of my mates, whose mum was from the Philippines, his dad was Maori from New Zealand. He never saw his dad ever. And his mum ended up being the side lady to some German dude, some rich fat German dude. So he was in and out of the house as he pleased. Another one of my mates was the son to Dennis Allen, Mr. Death, they call him in Australia. Look him up. He was a speed dealer and murdered like 8 people or something like that. So I was mates with his son, who ended up growing up in a fucking caravan park, and his mum eventually committed suicide as well. And the list goes on. Everyone had a fucked up childhood. But if you can make it out of a childhood like any of those childhoods, it either fucking destroys you or turns you into a diamond. And I was always of the opinion that you sort of need a little bit of a fucked up childhood. I really did. And I still kind of do. Like, I remember I used to meet people, and if they hadn't had a fucked up childhood, I was like, ugh. What, did your family say positive stuff to you? Did they feed you, did they? Oh my God, you fucking nerd. And I was kind of worried about my kid when I stopped drinking and became a Zen Buddha like I am now. I started worrying about whether he was going to live a too comfortable life. How fucked up's that for thinking? I was worried that my quitting drinking would negatively affect his life. Whereas if I continued drinking, it would have torn his life to shreds, and he would have come out either a diamond or a heroin addict. You know what I mean? That's how fucked up my thinking is. And you know, all my mates who had the hardest childhoods, some of them made it through, some of them didn't. Some of them are permanently fucked. Everyone's permanently fucked, but some of them transcended slightly. But most of them have only really reached a point where you're a almost functional, kind of normal, still pretty fucked up human being. That's where most of them reach. I'm including myself in that fucking category too. But to reach that level, they have had to fight like fuck just to get there. That's how far back they were coming from. That to reach there is the achievement of a fucking lifetime. Whereas if you just had a normal, fucking pleasant, nice, loving, not fucked up childhood, you reach that level without even trying. That's your base level. If you do nothing, you'll still end up there. Whereas these guys, and some girls too, are just coming from way back. And the thing is, you only hear about the good stories of people who have fought their way out of a fucked up childhood. You hear about the Mike Tysons, the Richard Pryors, shit like that. You don't hear about the overwhelming majority who die in the gutter, who never fucking recover from it, who just get fucking chewed up and spat out. So I think I've come to the conclusion that overall, having a fucked up childhood is of no benefit really to anyone. You really don't need anything to make life harder. Life is gonna fuck you up no matter what. Life is gonna fucking trample all over you. It's gonna chew you up and spit you out many times over. You're eventually gonna find out what you're made of. You don't need to find out when you're fucking 10. You don't need to find out before your brain's fucking developed. This is more just me pondering about the way you should raise a kid, or the way I should raise a kid. You can teach your kids resilience in better ways than rocking up after a bender and beating the fuck out of them. That's what I think my conclusion is. That's how fucked up I am. I've finally come to the conclusion that there could be better ways than living through hellish nightmares. Anyway, go read that book and you'll understand what I'm talking about. And the kids in that book, that is kind of how Australians grew up. Besides the sensationalized shit in the book, those childhoods aren't that much of a stretch. But it's the same everywhere. But if you're an Australian, read that book. If you're not an Australian and you want to get a feel for Australia, especially because it's set around about the time I was growing up. Anyway, that's it for tonight. If you're enjoying the podcast, share it with your friends. I hope you're enjoying it, and I'll see you the fuck later.